Welcome back to America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
And I'm John Bachman. J.D. moving right along with the show here. They may not be running for president quite yet, but former Florida Governor Jeb Bush and the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton seem to be running into each other a lot lately. They are together in Dallas today at a higher education conference organized by Jeb. It's the third time in the last year when the two have crossed paths. Now, if they decide to run, voters will obviously be familiar with each candidate, but also with the family name, of course. Earlier, Jeb took a lighthearted look at how that might cause a problem.
He looked at me and he goes, we had a Bush, then we had a Clinton, then we had a Bush, then we're going to have a Clinton, and then he turned to me and goes, and then we're going to have a Bush? So I get the point. I get the point, and it's something that I'd have to, if I was to run, I'd have to, overcome that. And so will Hillary, by the way.
So joining us right now to talk about political dynasties, specifically the Bush and Clinton dynasties, is journalist and political commentator Rick Ungar, host of the Steele and Ungar Show on POTUS Sirius XM Radio. Rick, always good to have you on the show.
Always a pleasure to be here. Happy Monday, everybody.
That's right. Happy Monday. So there's been some love lately between the Bush and Clinton's family, but what do you think the campaign would look like if the two were to run together or against each other?
Well,
together,
look, I mean, it's the media's dream. Let's face it. I mean, nothing could be better for people like you and I than to see that happen. Whether or not we're going to get our wish, I think, is a very different story. I think there's obviously a very good chance that Hillary's going to be there, barring something unforeseen, which, as you know, in politics, the unforeseen is often the to be expected. In Jeb's case, he's an interesting person to look at. I got to tell you, as somebody who leans to the left, I would be dishonest if I didn't say that I wouldn't sleep at night if Jeb were in the White House. I think I would. His positions are certainly far more conservative leaning than my own, but I think he's a sensible guy. I think he is qualified for the job as much as Hillary is, and it would make for a really great race.
Well, apart from the ability to sleep at night and the quote reasonableness of both from your perspective on different sides of the aisle, Rick, the problem seems to me to be this. They may both be personally engaging and in their own ways very good one-on-one with people. But in a country of over 300 million people, to just have these two families, another Bush and Clinton race, it seems to me to prompt a whole lot of churn and concern, certainly for a conservative like me who takes a look at what I believe to be a very deep bench on the Republican side looking ahead to 2016.
I can see what you're saying. I mean, yes, it's a large country. You would think there'd be more than these two families. And yet, when you look at the bench of the candidates on both sides, as a Democrat, I will tell you, I am concerned that the bench isn't all that deep on my side. I really am. I think that you got Hillary and then the big question mark. On your side, yeah, I think the bench is deeper, but is that really how you should go about picking a candidate? Should you go about picking a candidate based on the fact that, we don't like it because of his last name, or pick the guy or woman that you think has the best chance of A, winning, and B, being a capable, competent president? So, I think you have to be careful about this Royals thing. If they turn out to be the two best candidates, then they should be the candidates. If there's a better one, then that person should be the candidate.
Well, Rick, we know in a cross-section of American public opinion that the population has softened a little bit to President George W. Bush. Do you think, based on what you're saying right here, that you would sleep okay at night if Jeb Bush was in the White House? Do you feel that's a sentiment held by a lot of liberals, that they're not really thinking about President George W. Bush right now, and that Jeb Bush might not face any backlash from what his brother did while he was in Oval Office?
No, actually, I don't. I think that most liberals are not happy with the idea of yet another Bush. And again, given my choice, I would certainly race to the ballot box to vote for Hillary before I vote for Jeb Bush.
But the visceral kind of just knee-jerk reaction anytime you mention W's name, it doesn't really seem to be there like it once was. You think that's fair?
No, it's not. Look, there's a reality to W that I think people don't talk about often enough. Even when he was the president, and I was extremely unhappy with the job he did as president, I would still always say, listen, this guy's invited to my house for dinner. any night he wants because I think he's a decent human being. I think he proved he was a decent human being, doing something that, again, people don't talk about, which was the amount of aid he pumped into Africa and did an awful lot of good. There is a decency to George W. Bush. I know that some of my fellow liberals don't buy into that. They can't get past their feelings. I think that's the case. Was he a good president? No, I think he was a perfectly awful president. But I have a lot of friends who are CEOs of companies who also fail in their jobs but are great people. So I think that's part of what is mellowing the attitude towards George W. Bush. Will that be enough if Jeb wants to run? I don't know. I told my friend Steve Forbes that I could write the speech to separate Jeb from his brother in about 10 minutes. I don't think it's as big of a challenge as some others think that it is.
Well,
his problem within the Republican Party will be if he continues to be perceived as a rhino.
Yeah, well, here's the other thing going on that if Jeb decides to run, when it gets to a primary campaign, you have the videotape of a very candid, outspoken Barbara Bush going, nope, we've had two, that's enough. And I guess that Jeb would try to disarm that with humor, but again, it comes back to the notion, especially for Republicans, as in Republic, we believe in a small r republicanism too, not the notion of a, quote, royal family. And that disconnect, I think, will be tough to overcome. I guess you can joke about it, but how would you deal with it, Rick, if you were on our side of the aisle?
If I were on your side, I would deal with it exactly as he is dealing with it, and which is with humor. And as he said, I saw a piece of tape today where he was asked, do you think your mother would vote for you? And he paused for a minute and said, well, yes, she would.
Well, we know. I think one thing we can all agree on, Rick, is that Barbara Bush might be the smartest woman in that whole family. So that soundbite might come back to haunt her. Rick Ungar, thanks so much for being with us here on the show. Always great to talk with you. We have much more ahead here on the program, including your comments. We'll get to those right after the break.
It's your turn. Stay with us.